Thoughts on the Jews? Well, the first thing I could say about Jews is that a lot of my friends happen to be Jewish, and I think that's partly because Jewish people, and that's in part a cultural thing, are very, very interested in ideas, and I happen to be very interested in ideas, and so I have a great affinity for Jewish people. And so Maximox says, thoughts on the Jews? Well, that's complicated. Most of my friends are Jews, which is pretty interesting, and when I grew up in northern Alberta, and there were no Jews up there at all, so coming out to eastern Canada, especially in Montreal, there were lots of Jewish people there, and I made friends with lots of them. And then in Toronto, and I think part of the reason that so many of my friends have been Jewish is because the Jews have, and I'm obviously speaking in a very general sense, is they have a rich intellectual life and tremendous respect for intellectual pursuits, and so we have a natural affinity, and so more power to them as far as I'm concerned. There's a fair bit of evidence, especially with regards to the Ashkenazi Jews, that their average IQs are about 15 points higher than the general population, which accounts in part for the radical overrepresentation among Nobel Prize winners, for example, and also in positions of, let's say, authority and responsibility in many different domains. And it's like, man, I'm not unhappy about successful people. It's like, as I said, it's the same in relationship to money. As far as I'm concerned, it's not that you have a position of authority, and I'm not going to say power, because power and authority aren't the same thing. But if you have a position of authority, what matters is what you do with it. And so if competent people occupy positions of authority, then more power to them. That's lucky for the rest of us, I'll tell you that. So, and I think, I've often thought this about the Jews too, is that if you're going to be a minority, you should at least have the decency to fail. And I think that part of because, then, well, you're around and you're annoying because you're a minority, and because people are fundamentally ethnocentric, and all human beings are like that. But if a minority fails, then you can say, well, at least they failed, and that maybe allows you not to hate them quite as much. But the Jews have this annoying proclivity where they go as a minority to become extremely successful, and of course nobody can stand that. And so that's a huge part of what accounts for anti-Semitism, which I regard as an absolutely abysmal and what would you call it, reprehensible a priori stance, so